we're really just in the sea of noise all the time. And the mind uses the models of reality, of the models of belief systems and narratives from children to impose meaning on the noise that we're exposed to.
This is The Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
Let's say, for example, in every given moment, we're exposed to an enormous amount of information. So it's really like when we look at the primary sort of mostly widely accepted model of consciousness is the Basin Model, which looks at something called predictive coding. So for example, in every given moment, we're exposed to about 4 billion bits of information. We're really just in the sea of noise all the time. And the mind uses the models of reality, of the models of belief systems and narratives from children to impose meaning on the noise that we're exposed to. Everything comes down to survival-based mechanisms, energy efficiency, dealing with uncertainty. So how do we deal with uncertainty in every given moment is that we use our past to inform the present. That's why the past keeps re-informing our future. So when you're a child, you burn your hand, there's a high emotional quotient, which is, a painful experience. And then that informs our present moment reality when we're at a stove and we know how to navigate that experience. A lot of our past informs our future. That's why trauma perpetuates more trauma and why something different has to happen to interrupt trauma cycles. Trauma aside, let's just get back to this notion that in any given moment, we're exposed to a huge amount of information. Let's say 4 billion bits. The numbers vary slightly, depend on which scientists you look at, their research, but we only process about 150 bits of data in any given moment. So what determines what I pick out?
Our conscious mind is at 150, right? Our unconscious is processing
much more.
Yeah.
Much more. And that's where we start weaving in flow states, the narrative of the science of flow. And when we get into flow and also psychedelics, they open the thalamus, which is like the doors of perception, the reduction valve that Aldous Huxley referred to. So, but in any given moment in waking consciousness, we're picking out very small bits of data. So you can have an experience alongside your friend. Let's say you go to dinner together and you're both driving home and you're like, wow, that was an amazing dinner. That was so fun. And your friend was like, what are you talking about? That sucked. My life is miserable. That's the difference between a happy life or an unhappy life, one that's filled with meaning and purpose and humor and joy, and another life that's like, wow, this sucks. This, like, that person was mean. He was critical, whatever. So what determines that? Well, when we start looking at the perception, we start understanding that we pick out the data to confirm what our beliefs already believe to be true. So that example I gave earlier about like looking for the block to fit into the narrative of, let's say I have a belief that men are chauvinistic. I don't have that belief, but let's just say that, for example. So I go to a dinner and I'll look for information to confirm that belief to be true. And that's what we all do. And that's what we literally do all the time. It's much more energy efficient to say, validate, money is hard to come by. Life is a struggle. Much easier to validate that than to formulate a new belief system, because what's under a belief are neurological connections that are formed in the mind. So we become in this very strong self-fulfilling loop.